Melissa here. I've got some redness right here. If I put my fingers on my face, I can break out very easy. That's how sensitive my skin can be. I want to talk about a couple things. So I am home now. I went and brought my son to work, and that's working off some debt I owe him. And I have given him a huge amount of interest for helping me out when things were tough for all of us, honestly. So, finally settling in here, getting on my feet again, waiting to hear from this job. I pretty much think I have been able to kind of get a grasp on the territory around here now and be able to, kind of adjust to the culture and everything else. So, I want to talk about someone left a message on one of my videos about, churches that don't want to help. And when I watched The Chosen on Saturday, I want to talk about what Jesus said about helping the poor. He has basically rebuked the Pharisees. He said, what do you do to help these people? And if the context is correct in the movie, he had just healed a blind man, right? And the Pharisees are like, what do you mean? Who gives you this right to heal this blind man? Okay, most of the people in the crowd saw this and they were astonished and amazed. They were like, whose fault is it this man's blind? Is it him who had sinned, or it's his parents who had sinned? And he said, neither one of them sinned. This is for God's glory. So this man, he puts, some kind of concoction, mud, water, whatever, on this man's eyes. And it's not that makes the man see, but it's the miracle of Jesus. And this is what he did. He went around healing people, helping the blind see, the ones who think they could see, he made blind, so to say. So they are basically like, what gives you the right to heal this man? And they didn't see the miracle. And Jesus lays into them. And in this movie, they're like, are you done? And he's like, I'm just getting started, and he lays into them some more. And he says, you tithe and mint, etc., down to the T of the law, but you neglect the weightier things. And love, justice, mercy, basically. I'm not quoting it exactly, but he's saying there are bigger things in life than these little tiny things where you clean the outside of the cup and leave the inside dirty. He says, clean the inside of the cup, meaning ourselves, then the outside will be right. And, basically they were like, who gives you this right? And this blind man's like, I don't know. They're like, who was this man who healed you? And he's like, I don't know. I just know I was blind and I couldn't see, and now I can see. And he was so happy and full of joy. And wouldn't any of us be like that? Wouldn't we be like, I don't care who this guy is. This is what he did for me. And that's what I care about. Same thing with people, okay? So we have churches who don't want to help, or they have, as I've called many churches, they're like, oh, we have this program over at this organization. And I inform them and say, well, this organization here, I'll try to hold still, they have a long line on Monday night that goes way, way out down the road. I went there once. Way, way down the road. I saw the line and I turned around. Then I had gotten a card to go in and sit in there, which, if you're in that long line, you usually don't even get seen. When I sat down, this is when I first got here, and I got that card, they didn't help, right? And I was at I think I was like pretty much at zero, okay? They didn't help. And I'm thinking, what does it take to help, right? So it was either zero or a very low income. So when churches say, oh, go here, we give money to them, I'm like, this is what really happens. You have to sit there in line, you're in line, and then once you get in there, if you get help, it's a lottery system. And it's once a month they help one person with rent It's very limited. So you have all these people who need help, right? And you're really not helping them. You're giving them a false hope. And so some of the churches were like, oh, we didn't realize that's what the process is. And it's like, why would you support someone you don't understand what the process is? So it's kind of just passing the buck. Oh, just go here or just go here. So as somebody who really, grew up without really any need, really not at all. I mean, I had no material needs really. My father worked hard, my mother worked hard. I didn't really have to worry about much when I worked. I just, enjoyed spending money with my husband, and we dated, and we went to the mall, and I had the clothes I wanted, everything. Went out to eat, everything. So, and then I became a mom, and I used the resources just to help me do a better job, so I didn't have to spend the time, in the kitchen all the time or whatever, to try to save every single penny. There was a time I was pinching pennies, but I'm like, why not just use resources? So that's what I do now to help women use the resources needed to get the help. But on the other hand, now that I've gone through quite a bit of crises, from losing our home to getting the resources, that was like probably like a year's worth of resources there. Coming here, needing help with resources, that's like a whole nother 2 years, right? So when we think of helping people, it's not just, okay, here, let me have you go to a shelter. I mean, it's nice that you can send someone there if they really need it, but the shelters usually have bed bug bites. They're usually not open all the time. They're not the best places to go. Let me give you some counsel. What kind of counsel can help, really? I mean, if somebody doesn't have it, they don't have it. So there is a point of some counsel, but that counsel should include resources where you can, hook up to different places. And we're seeing right now here that a lot of people are coming in the border. I just saw something from the governor this last week that we don't have a major crisis yet, but they are preparing because the people have come from the border into Denver, and now they're coming to Colorado Springs. And they're like, we're going to help our people first. I don't know how political this is, because when I've looked out there, there's not a lot of help right now. There's just not. A lot of churches are like, you have to be a member here and you have to serve here. Well, you can be a member, which I was at a church, and you can be serving, and they still won't help. That's what happened. So I left that church. I'm like, no, thank you, As far as resources for our people, so to say, like I said, there's really not much at all anymore here. Not that I'm seeing. So I think this is really political. And what I'm trying to say is we need to really help people. Really. I mean, what if Jesus, some of the help is long term, right? You have 2 or 3 years, different jobs falling through. The jobs here are not the best. I've heard that from many people. You have jobs falling through. My vehicle broke. I have another vehicle with 300,000 miles on it. So even if I wanted to travel to New Hampshire, I really can't at this time, not with that thing. I could bus if I really wanted to. But the point is, we have people who have long-term needs. Long-term. I'm going to walk over here just because, oh my goodness, this heat. Let me see. Let me go over here a minute and turn this down. So we have people with long-term needs, right? Long-term. And unless you can help people, I mean, there's so many people who say they help, but they don't. We want to be like Jesus. We really want programs in place to really help people. What if Jesus said that? What if he's like, sorry, can't help you today. Sorry, can't help you today. God is there for us every single day. God is so generous, and I'm going to have my time with God soon in my Bible, that he laid down his life for us, right? He laid down his life. He died for us. He died for sin. You know, every day we have eternity. We are his, we are, we have an inheritance up in heaven that we can't even imagine. He's up there. He says he has a mansion for us. Okay, so why would we not want the same thing for our brothers and sisters in Christ? And I'm not saying this is a prosperity gospel at all, but we should be, you know, Jesus came here, he was poor, he was rich, although, you know, he was poor, although he was rich. He could have had a lot if he wanted. He, you know, turned fish, you know, into multiple fish and loaves. You know, he could produce if he wanted more, but he chose, you know, to lower himself, right? So we have everything because of God, and we should be willing to do that for others. And I don't know why we don't. And it's not that it's like a scarcity mindset, like, oh, we don't have money to do this. That's not true. If you look at how the rich live on the other side of town here, there's plenty of money. It's just not managed right. There's just so much waste, right? People waste money on so much. And I'm not even talking about takeout. I'm talking about, you know, buying the stupidest stuff out there, you know, getting into crypto sometimes and all this other stuff. If we used our resources better, we wouldn't have so many poor people. And I say this because the other night, too, I was door dashing, and the road was blocked, and the police had it blocked off on all four corners. I went around twice, and this person's like, do you have my food yet? And I'm like, you know, roadblock. And they're like, well, you can come out over here and I'll meet you on the west side of the building. And I'm trying to drive, and you know, I look at this message and I just ignored it because I'm trying to drive. And so I'm going away from the order to call DoorDash and tell them, look, this, you know, I can't get in this place. So this person wanted me to go out of my way. And they're like, are you coming back? And I just called DoorDash and I was like, look, I can't get in here. And they're like, is there any way you can give them the order? And I'm like, nope, I'm not there now. You know, I have to move on to my other dashes. So, you know, the person wasn't happy, but that's my time. You know, that is my time. And I'm sorry, but I cannot, you know, I'm not going to go way out of my way to do a DoorDash I'm really not getting paid for to go out of my way. I will to a point, but not something crazy, right? So I had this leftover soup in a roll, and I took a bite of it, and I'm like, you know, I didn't think this was that great. And I felt like there was someone else who needed it more than me. So I put the cover on, and I was just going over toward another DoorDash, and I saw this guy, 2 blankets on him, looking in the trash for food. And I was just moved, and I gave him my soup in the roll, and come to find out he was trying to say thank you, and he was deaf. So there's not just, you know, the normal homeless people, but there's those who are, you know, one man was blind that I saw. He's over by Wendy's. He's always got like equipment to try to find, you know, the metal on the ground to help him. There's people who are deaf. There are people who can barely walk. They're in wheelchairs. This is just so, I mean, Jesus had compassion. This is so sad, and we need to bring in more resources to house people like this, the people that really cannot take care of themselves. And, you know, if we can't be like Jesus and we call ourselves Christians and we can't help people, I mean, that's pretty basic. That's not even like, you know, calling yourself a Christian and trying to have good character. That takes work. That's the work side of working out your salvation and living a Christian life. But if we can't do the bottom line, you know, basic here, you know, have some of my food here. I saw Drew last night. He came over to my truck. He's a regular homeless guy, and I invited him to church, and he does believed the gospel. He quoted, he knew John 3:16 when we talked about God. And I said, "Do you pray?" And he said he does. And so we have Christian brothers and sisters out there who are homeless. And I see Drew, and his feet are just, he walks slowly, he's sore, he can barely walk. Last night he had a shiner. I don't know what happened in his life, but he had one on his face. Not that I believe everything either that I'm told, but we shouldn't, I did not grow up with homelessness. You didn't see this homelessness that you do now. People were always, having people over at their house, feeding them, clothing them. Churches took care of people better. You had orphanages. You had things in place. So if we can't, get this together as a society and really help people, not just like, I heard someone say this and I was taken aback. They said, at least they're still alive. And it's kind of like, is that really how you would feel if you were on the street? Would you feel like, geez, at least I'm still alive? A lot of those people probably wish they were dead, honestly. And so, we don't want to, we want to treat others as we want to be treated. We don't want to be like, here's a crumb for you while I'm living my life in luxury. We want to be willing to say, I don't need all this stuff. What do you need? How can I help you? So we need churches that really are willing to, cut a check and help people with their rent before they are homeless. Help them with their car. My vehicle needs repairs, women, especially women with kids, they need vehicle repairs. Let's not say we're pro-life as a church and not help people. That's just, we're out there a lot of times thinking of one abortion, one child to help, one mother to help. But a lot of times, if you're going to have a big family, we need help for 3, 4, 5, 10 kids sometimes, right? People who come from other countries, they have a lot of kids. My neighbor here had 5. I think it was her 5th one. Yeah. So they didn't have much money, and they were happy, but they were barely making it. So we need enough help out there to provide for really big families. We want big families. Again, we want to strive and have a lot of Christian families, and that's the way the kingdom is going to go forward. We pray God's kingdom on earth as it is in heaven, and we want big Christian families where we are continuing to bring the gospel down each generation and help people. So leave your ideas below. We need a lot of help. We see, like, my son's a Taylor Swiftie fan, and we see these individual people who make a ton of money, right? And there's nothing wrong with capitalism as far as getting out there, and if you made the money, you earned it. But we worship people instead of really loving and caring about the lowest of the low, and we really need to change that as a society. Okay, thanks for joining me, guys.